Thank you for having me here today. Today, we are faced with an undeniable need for change. We continue to be confronted with unrest, disruption, and seismic shifts in the world. It is time to pause and rethink what we want our industry, economies, and communities to look like. We need to, with some urgency, completely realign our interactions with nature. We are in the decade where we have to change things to shape a future that we want to leave for our children, for future generations, and for ourselves. We need to get back to a place where we live and work with nature, not against it. Nature is the underlying foundation of our livelihoods, economy, and well-being. And we are destroying nature and consuming natural resources at a rate that far exceeds the planet's capacity to regenerate. If we collectively hold a shared vision for a better tomorrow, we can become realigned with nature. We can decouple the idea of a good and meaningful life from ever-increasing material consumption. However, to achieve this transformation, the entire systems that we rely on have to change. This is why we at Textile Exchange have refocused our efforts around our Climate Plus strategy. Our goal is to help the textile industry achieve a 45% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in the pre-spin part of the value chain by 2030. We focus on raw materials and fibers, the part of the supply chain that is made up of farms, forests, and recycling facilities. And the reason that we call our strategy Climate Plus is that it goes beyond only accounting for greenhouse gas emissions. Instead, we take a holistic and interconnected approach to the often overlooked areas that we need to protect and restore: soil health, water, and biodiversity. Fashion's building blocks are based on agriculture and oil. Anyone that has been paying attention knows that these two industries will dictate whether or not we succeed in avoiding the worst effects of climate change. I'm not going to use the remainder of my time to talk about the necessity to move away from fossil fuels. My hope is that this audience knows all too well the urgency of this need. And while that's true, the textile industry, and while it's true that the textile industry does not make up the majority of the global agricultural supply chains, I do believe that our industry has an important role to play in the change we want to see both on the ground and through fashion's ability to tell stories and change behaviors. Because if we continue down the path we're on, it's likely that we'll lose over 40% of the world's insect species. And we will continue to lose key habitats, such as the Amazon forest, where 80% of the forest loss is due to farming. Additionally, land use conversion due to agriculture has the single largest negative impact on biodiversity globally. This matters. This matters because biological diversity supports the ecosystems essential for human life, including climate regulation, water, food security, and protection from natural disasters. On the upside, nature provides many of the solutions we're looking for. It will help us face the challenges that we're looking at and helps us solve things like climate change. Fashion needs to embrace nature-based solutions if we want to reverse climate change and protect biodiversity. Nature naturally traps carbon. If we regenerate damaged land, support the protection and regeneration of forests, and stop choking and poisoning our oceans, we have the potential to reduce huge amounts of carbon emissions. We're talking around 10 to 12 gigatons per year that could be achieved of greenhouse gas reduction that can be achieved through nature-based solutions. This is huge. Because when nature is in balance, it is innately restorative and regenerative. But we also have to recognize that we've exhausted our planet, and self-renewal can no longer be counted upon. We have to support regeneration and aid rewilding. We need to help nature bounce back. To achieve the necessary transition to regenerative, we need to pay more attention to soil. Soil is important and often neglected. Soil is the second largest garbage store, or sink, after the oceans. Soil is literally the foundation of all of civilization. Healthy soils are crucial in maintaining clean water supplies and mitigating climate change. We need the widespread adoption of soil health practices, and regenerative agriculture offers a pathway to do this. The health of our sector depends on our ability to work with farmers to develop resilient and regenerative systems. However, regenerative agriculture cannot be defined as a single statement or set of practices. It is contextual, place-based, and nuanced, and calls for a holistic systems approach that puts humans and ecosystems at its core. And we cannot lose sight of the fact that regenerative agriculture is based on indigenous wisdom. Regenerative programs should be rooted in justice, equality, and livelihoods. We have a lot we can learn from Indigenous wisdom, and it's about time we started listening. Indigenous people only make up 5% of the world's population, but their territories hold 80% of the world's biodiversity, have the largest carbon stores, and represent 40 to 50% of the remaining protected habitats in the world. Protecting Indigenous lands and rights is a critical part of addressing the climate crisis. Of course, all of this is easier said than done. Change is hard, and asking society and businesses to rethink the metrics of success and prosperity is no small task, but it is a necessary one. So where to start? Let's start with what we know works. Let's accelerate the adoption of organic, regenerative, recycled, or other more responsible alternatives to conventional materials. We have to move beyond incremental change. It's time that these materials become the accessible default. Next, we need to innovate. We need out-of-the-box thinking, new business models, circular systems, even innovative materials. This means collecting better data and facilitating information sharing on how we can scale existing solutions like regenerative agriculture and textile-to-textile recycling. And maybe most importantly, we have to rethink growth. Slowing down, making less, producing with purpose. It is time to disrupt our industry's unchecked rates of growth for growth's sake. We need to decouple the concept of value creation from creation of brand new products. Slow growth is a far from mainstream topic, but speaking plainly, without it, it is impossible to see how we meet our climate goals. I've talked a lot about climate and climate change because I believe this is the greatest threat that we face and the challenge of our lifetime. However, I want to be clear that I'm not advocating for a carbon-only view. We have a closing window to act, but to effect meaningful change, we must work in an interconnected way because we are in this together, all of us. And it is time that we capitalize upon our interconnectedness. It isn't about me, it is about we. The global threat that we face requires global collaboration. We need to take the necessary time and space to invest in connections because our fates are intertwined. I hold a vision for a new system that works in sync with nature, respecting planetary boundaries while protecting people and animals. And while at times I question if the fashion industry is up for this challenge, I do hold true to the belief that it is. And not only that, but that fashion can become a voice for change. Fashion has always been a powerful tool of influence. Currently, this influence is used to make you want to buy more, and in creating a reality in which the self-worth of many is connected to the ability to look on trend. Designed obsolescence is at the core of fashion, meaning that designers create designs that are meant to be phased out. That is literally the definition of fashion. The constant pushing of new and more makes it very hard to tackle the root causes and systems that we need to change. The rise of disposable fashion has eroded our ability to place meaningful value on our clothing. But let's imagine a world in which the same brands that are currently telling you need to buy more to be happy shift their messagings to promoting longevity and value. That desirability isn't built around this season's trends, but brands promote resale, reuse, and repair to help ensure that products stay in the economy as long as possible. None of what I'm talking about is new. The ideas that I'm sharing today are based on circular economy principles, indigenous wisdom, and proven solutions. We have known what we need to do for a long time. We know what needs to happen. The solutions exist, and now it is time to scale what we know works. I remain an optimist, but my optimism is underpinned by a rising sense of urgency. I believe that we are up for the challenges that lie ahead, but we simply don't have the luxury of wasting any more time. So let's get to work.